There are reports the former Education Secretary Michael Gove is still being sent copies of all departmental paperwork in an effort perhaps to stop his political legacy being undermined. Well, joining me now in the studio is the Education Minister, Nick Gibb. Well, let's deal with your old friend Michael Gove, first of all. Is he still getting the paperwork? Is he being a bit of a backseat driver here?
Well, I work with Nicky Morgan on a daily basis, and I can tell you she's very firmly in charge of the Department for Education.
Is Michael Gove in charge too?
Of course, Michael Gove. No, Michael Gove, of course, as Chief Whip, will see papers that go into the Prime Minister's red box. He has to be right across all Whitehall departments in his
So he
job
does get your departmental papers, then?
He will get the same papers that go to other departments, that go to the Prime Minister. He has to be across all Whitehall developments, all policy developments across Whitehall as Chief Whip.
And does he put in his halfpenny worth to you?
No, he doesn't. Nicky Morgan is absolutely in charge of our department. I work closely with her, and I enjoy very much doing that.
Well, it's funny because it sounds very much like a Michael Gove policy, this numeracy and literacy drive. But in fact, it's a slightly watered-down Michael Gove policy, because Nicky Morgan talks about an 11-year-old reading a novel. Well, Michael Gove said years ago that an 11-year-old should read 50 a year. And then Nicky Morgan says an 11-year-old should learn the times tables off by heart. Well, Michael Gove said they expected that by the age of 9. So it's not only an old proposal, but also a watered-down one. It's
not watered down. The national curriculum says all children should learn their tables by the end of year 4. This is a test at the end of primary school. They still need to have memorised their tables by the time they leave primary school.
So it's rehashing an existing policy?
No, it's about improving the testing at the end of primary school to ensure that schools are giving this absolute priority. This is about getting the basics right in reading and in mathematics, so when the children go on to secondary school, they are equipped to be able to undertake more sophisticated math. Because of the reforms we've already put in place, the phonics check, for example, 100,000 6-year-olds are today reading better than they would have done if we hadn't have introduced these reforms.
They should be reading 50 novels a year, though.
They should be reading significant numbers of books every year from throughout their primary education, so they develop speed and fluency. But they also need to be able to read a long book, 150, 200 pages, so that they develop that resilience in being able to read a book.
What was the last long novel you read?
Philip Roth is my favourite author, so I'm
recommend that to primary school
and
kids?
I'm reading. No, of course not. And James McPherson's The History of the American Civil War. I'm enjoying it at the moment.
But I mean, on the numeracy proposals, is it strictly necessary to be absolutely au fait with your times tables when you've got iPhone calculators?
Yes, it is, because this is why we introduce it into the curriculum at the end of in year 4, because in year 5 children are taught their long multiplication algorithm. In year 6 they learn how to do long division. This is about getting the basics of mathematics right, so they can understand what's happening, and they develop a fluency in performing mathematical calculations, and then they're ready then to undertake harder mathematics at secondary school. You're going to ask me a multiplication table, I sense it.
Well, OK, 12 times 8?
12 8s are 96.
Very good. 12 6s?
72.
Very good. You've practised, haven't you? 12 9s?
12 9s are 108.
You have practised, haven't you?
Well, no, I go around primary schools every week and secondary schools, and I ask primary school children their tables. And I have noticed over the last several years that children are increasingly learning their tables.
Well, they're better than you, then?
Thank you. I hope I got those all right. But we need all children to have mastered their multiplication tables, not just most, and right up to 12 12s.
OK, here's a spelling then. Perspicacious.
I'm not going to ask any spelling.
Supernumerary.
I'm not going to ask any of these.
You're not as good at spelling as you are at times tables.
I'm not as good at spelling as I am at times tables.
But it all comes down to money, doesn't it, seriously? Because there's no good the children doing their bit if you haven't got the real good teachers raising those standards. Your boss, Nicky Morgan, talks about fighting for the school's budget to be protected, but you can't be sure that's going to happen, can you?
Well, education is key to our country's long-term economic prospects, and that's why we put such an effort into reforming our education system. But also, we have to take into account the deficit. But we will be making an announcement about what we're going to be doing in the future on school funding very shortly.
OK, Nick Gibb, thank you very much, and well done on the maths.